I've said it before and I will probably say it again. There is no attribute more overrated in a watch than versatility. 9 times out of 10, it's nothing more than code for mediocre at lots of things. But every now and then, a watch nails it and makes versatility a true virtue. I think the Alpina Alpiner 4 Auto is just such a watch. In fact, apart from one very specific issue that could be quite big for some of you, I think it's nigh on perfect as that go anywhere, do anything kind of cornerstone of your collection. That one versatile watch that we probably do all need. Okay, so let's just get some of the nitty-gritty out of the way. As I said in the intro, we're talking about the Alpina Alpiner 4 Auto. Reference number AL525NS5AQ6. In terms of genre, this is a classic go-anywhere, do-anywhere watch. Theoretically, this watch costs $1,300 US, but you'll never have to pay more than about $900 US. Was introduced in 2016 and it remains current. This kind of go anywhere, do anything watch is core Alpina. It's part of their DNA. Goes right back to 1933 with the Block and really specifically to 1938 with the original Alpina 4. The 4 in Alpina 4 stood then for made of stainless steel, some level of water resistance, some level of shock protection, some level of anti-magnetism. That concept of the rugged, no-nonsense sports watch capable of just about anything is carried through and is embodied in this new Alpina Alpiner 4. Actually, if you're being really honest, a watch like the Alpina is not truly a real tool watch. It's not really a go anywhere or do anything watch. In 2022, a Garda watch has to be quartz, probably solar, and is most likely a G-Shock. So maybe we need to add some riders to say that this is a classic go anywhere, do anything Swiss automatic watch. Maybe if we go for that slightly smaller category, this watch and so many watches like it actually start to make more sense. Okay, so let's get into it. How does the watch go at being this Garda piece? As I said, first things first, we'll get over the fact that it's not quartz as a true Garda should be, but I think this watch does come with the next best kind of movement, and that is a variant of the Sellita SW200. Rugged, no-nonsense, reliable, and eminently maintainable, even replaceable, pretty much regardless of where you are in the world. Something every true watch like this should have. It professes to be anti-magnetic, but let's not kid ourselves. There's no METAS certification here. This is straight up ISO 764 compliance, which is aligned with daily magnetic fields. I have no idea what that means. I would say I've owned this watch for 2 years and it's never been magnetized, so maybe it does mean something. The watch does come with 100 meters water resistance, and face it, it's not a dive watch, but you could dive with this if you wanted to. It is absolutely pool or beach ready. I should point out it does come with the obligatory screw down crown that so many people demand. Both the case and the bezel are steel, and that's again a fantastic choice for this style of watch. Steel is a material that can take a punch. It might get a scrape here or there, but it won't break or fail in any way that stops you using the watch. The watch is fitted with a very simple bidirectional rotating bezel with simple minute markers, and it is fantastic for this kind of Garda watch. It provides a really simple timing device for pretty much anything you want to do, and with a bit of thought, you can even use it for a second time zone. The watch is fitted with a sapphire crystal, which is very 2022. Interesting, something like Hesalite might have actually been smarter for a true Garda watch, but I suspect this is an area where marketing probably stepped in, overruled the engineers and said, we are not trying to sell this watch without sapphire, put that material in. So all in all, for the watch hobbyist's idea of a Garda watch, this thing hits all the right notes. And so far, the Alpina Alpiner 4 is looking great, which is a great segue for talking about the looks. In general, this watch bounces backwards and forwards across the dress sports line. When we get to the case, it's mostly utilitarian brushing, but with just enough polish, just enough visual interest to go with your suit and not look out of place in the boardroom. It's got that bezel, which is all sport, but the bezel at the same time is steel and tends to merge with the rest of the case visually, winding it back and not looking quite so divery. Moving inwards to the dial, yes, this one is blue and sunburst. However, it is slightly muted, and I find that the color shifts from blue to black depending on how the light hits it, which again drags it from the bar to the boardroom. At this point, I should make it clear that you can get this watch with a white dial or a black dial if you feel that the blue is just a little bit too much. The markers in the hands are simple, plain, and get the job done. No fancy breguets or cathedral hands, but they are stark white and super high polish. Think of these like a soldier's uniform, but more dress or parade uniform, not fatigues. As is Alpina's wont, there are little pops of red and red triangles here and there on this watch. These act as trademarks of Alpina. It's something that they do on all their watches. But also they add some visual joy to this watch. Yes, the extra markings are red, but it's a very dark, muted tone of red. No one's getting too carried away at this party. Speaking of not getting too carried away, the crystal is ever so slightly domed. Again, giving up a little bit of ultimate legibility, but at the same time, having a little bit of a play with some distortion and fun bending of the light. Okay, so that's all the looks and the aesthetics done. How is it screwed together? As is always the case for Alpinas and their big brother, Frederic Constant, the execution of this watch is very, very good. Don't get me wrong, we're not talking about Lange here. We are talking about a $900 to $1,000 watch. But in general, the brushing is fine and deep. The polishing is smooth and clear with no obvious ripples. The transitions are relatively clean and crisp. In short, the watch is unspectacular in terms of build, but that's probably what you should be expecting. I've got my watch on the factory brown leather strap, which I think works beautifully with the blue dial, and the strap in general is really nice quality. If you want to go more formal, I think that blue would work really well with a black leather strap. You can get this watch on a bracelet. I have no idea how good or bad that bracelet is, and I suspect this watch would work brilliantly on a rubber strap. It comes with a 22mm lug width, which is less common than 20, but still a regularly available size. But 22mm lug width is the first sign of that big problem I hinted at in the introduction. I'm very conscious of the fact that so far in this review, I've bounced between this watch is quite good and this watch is very good. But now I think the message becomes less universally positive, at least for a lot of you. I'll cut to the chase. This watch is only available in 44mm. And in 2016, when this watch was released, that was unremarkable. But in 2022, where the fashion has reversed, 44mm is now considered a big watch, maybe even a very big watch. It also comes with 52mm lug to lug, so as well as being wide, it's also long. I can imagine right now many of you have stopped listening to this because this watch is just too big for you, or at least you think it is. But before you write it off, I would suggest you at least try it if you can get near one of these watches. Alpina have pulled out some of the little tricks that can make an otherwise overly large watch still quite wearable. The spring bars are a long way in from the end of the lugs, meaning that your, if you like, bar to bar length is actually considerably shorter than your lug to lug. And those lugs do slope down quite significantly, meaning this watch is likely to wrap around your wrist more than you think it would. Finally, the watch is only 13mm thick, only 1 millimeter more than an Explorer and a fraction thinner than an Aquaterra would be. The mid case is really shallow, the case back is a little dished, and so all in all, this watch does settle into your wrist, giving a nicely planted feel, and it is very secure, and perhaps might feel a little smaller than those base numbers suggest. But let's not get too carried away here. Geometric and visual trickery will only get you so far. At the end of the day, there are still 44 millimeters of steel and glass between one side of the watch and the other, and 52 millimeters from one end to the other. If you've got a smaller wrist, there is every chance this watch just isn't going to work for you. Okay, so as I routinely say, you can't separate art from the artist, and you can't separate a watch from the watchmaker. To understand how good or bad a watch is, you've got to have some sense of where does the brand fit? How does Alpina do in this space? Frankly, I think Alpina is the perfect go anywhere, do anything watch brand. It fits beautifully in that Goldilocks area that you want your Garda watch to be. Alpina is not anonymous, it's a solid brand with real heritage in this space. So Alpina is no Johnny-come-lately Chinese mushroom brand, but at the same time, it's not too famous. It's not going to draw the wrong kind of attention. This is no Rolex you need to be worried about, that you need to baby, that you perhaps need to keep hidden. This is a watch where you can wear it and feel comfortable no matter where you are, no matter how salubrious or how shady. Getting close to the end now, let's talk about price, because I think this is particularly important. I believe for a true go anywhere, do anything watch, price is particularly sensitive. Remember, we're talking about a watch which is very likely to be damaged, maybe even lost along the way. These watches aren't the star of your team. They're always okay, but they're never the best. They're chosen purely because they're just good enough. You don't want to overinvest in a watch like that. Going right back to some of the things I said earlier, ideally, at this point, we're talking about a $50 G-Shock, but since a lot of us want our Swiss mechanical Garda watches, and we're not entirely rational about this, we're sticking with the idea that it's going to be an automatic. So getting a Swiss-made automatic watch from a maker with real history, with all the right specs, looking as good as this does, for just $900 is right on the money of what you want to be paying for this kind of watch. Which brings us to the wrap-up. How did the Alpina Alpiner 4 go? Well, I think it's near as damn it perfect for what it's trying to achieve in being that go anywhere, do anything quasi-beta Swiss mechanical watch. It is Swiss made. It is automatic. It comes from a maker with real history to call on. It has very solid specs. It is attractive if it doesn't have especially unique looks. It's been screwed together really nice and has great quality for the price. And that price is really competitive, coming in at around about that $1,000. For me, the only really big issue is, will it fit you? That size will simply rule it out of many wrists, which is terribly unfortunate, because I think there's a real shame. If this doesn't fit you, you're missing out on something that's really, really rare. That is a watch that is great at being okay.